Okay, we are ready and going live.
Hey, I had the opportunity.
I am making sure we are good to go. I'm excited. How is everybody doing? Of course, this is Francine Bergens, and we are super live on Facebook. And I got to tell you, it's been that kind of a day. We are snowed in Northwest Indiana. We got about in different parts 12 and 8, what is it, 12 feet is a sub, right? Yeah, 12 feet of snow. Some other parts and different embankments, and some parts of Chicago there's 22 feet of snow. So I am literally just coming in from outside, and I want to send a special shout out to Denise Hogan and her husband, just for looking out for me and my family, making sure that we were shoveled out and all that good stuff. So Denise, and in the snowstorm, you guys, she has brought me apple butter and a plate. Thank you, boo. So thank you so much. Of course, I am the owner and I'm the founder of Discover You LLC, and we are a professional and personal training and development company. And we are the people who you come and see when you need training for your employees on customer service, leadership, entrepreneurship, webinars, etc., as well as coaching. Um, we offer those services to you. And I am here because my team is so awesome with keeping me busy with content. So I have to send a shout out to Dashiana Tillman and Lakeisha Trotter. Thank you guys so much. So this week, guys, the goal was to kind of like kill two birds with one stone. So we're celebrating Black History Month, but this week is also National E-Ship Week or National Entrepreneurship Week. And I really wanted to just reach into the community and have some conversations and have some dialogue. So, of course, on the 13th, we had Chef Jennifer Maybon and her story with Vision. Yesterday, we had a great girlfriend good time with my sister friend, Dr. Vanessa Allen from the Urban League. And I have to tell you, after doing yesterday's show, you all have reached out to me and to her, and you are making those donations. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I definitely want you to go back and replay the show. But today is even more special and more dear to me because I have been trying to get with this young man since last year, I think, and my schedule was super busy. And here we are again. And I am just honored and elated to welcome Coach Lester Young. Hello there. You can unmute yourself, Lester. How are you?
Lessons, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
So,
Let me cut my volume up a little bit. So, Lester, I want to welcome you to Discover You TV. I guess we're calling it today. And I'm going to let you talk, but I want to share a little bit of your story because I really want the people to understand how important this is, the role that you play, and this calling that you have just in the Black community to help other Black men and just men in general. So Lester is from South Carolina, and at the age of 19, he was given a life sentence with the possibility of parole after serving 20 years. I want to fast forward because I really kind of want him to tell his own story. So we're in 2021. And as you can see, he is a free man. Not only is he a free man with a whole powerful story to help some people, he has voted for the first time. I want to talk about that. And this is one of the reasons why I just wanted to bring you in to capture this essence for Black History Month, to hear what it is you have to say with all these things we have had just going on, and just let you empower and encourage the people in your own way. So, Lester, right now, I'm going to give you the floor. I'm going to give you a minute. No, I'm serious. I want to give you a minute to just kind of do what you do,
okay.
share your story, and then I'll kind of chime in from there. Is that okay?
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Blessings to everyone. I thank you for your invite, sister. I'm glad that we had an opportunity to connect for the first time again on live.
Yes, yes.
Just really just share my story. My story is, as you can see, is about Path2Redemption. At 19 years old, I was given a life sentence in South Carolina for shooting someone over a drug dispute. And unfortunately, this person died. And here I was now placed in this prison system and trying to find how in the world could I actually live a life of redemption, or is there even a possibility of redemption after taking someone's life over a drug dispute and now being sentenced to life? But God showed me, in spite of the challenges I was facing inside of prison, dealing with all the different range of emotions that came with being sentenced to life, and on top of that, dealing with the guilt that came with taking another human being life. God showed me that the only way that I will be able to find redemption and to be able to honor my victim is that I had to have a conversation with my victim. And some of you may say, how do I have a conversation with someone whose demise? God showed me that I could always have a conversation with his spirit. And this is where in order for that was where I began that conversation, atoning, that process of atoning for the action that led to this person's death, a family member grieving the loss of their loved one. Here it is, I'm still alive, but what was the purpose behind this? You know, unfortunately, someone lost their life, but how could I turn this into something good? And this is where I begin communicating, praying to God and begging not only God, but my victim to forgive me for this horrible act in which I engaged in, and allow me to honor him in some way. And this is where God showed me that my purpose will be born out of my pain, out of this bad situation. Purpose will be given, and I have to walk out my life, walk this purpose out by empowering other men who are in that prison system with me, to find their way of redemption, so that when they return back home from prison, they will become an asset to their community versus a liability. And most importantly, honor the victims. I think that our victims, the victims who are impacted by crime, don't understand. I mean, people don't really understand that when you carry out a crime, you have to find a way to honor that victim and their family. And me, I said I would never turn back to drugs again. I would never go back to the street life. I will find my voice in prison. I'll use my voice to empower other people. But most importantly, uphold my promise that I made to my victim inside that prison cell that late night, crying out to God.
Keep going. You good.
So that's really where it started. And by me praying to God and speaking to my victim, I started creating a strategy for my life inside of prison. With just a possibility of parole, that was enough for me. My faith told me, as long as I believe in God, you have to see, have the see faith the side of a mustard seed. You could move mountains, and I believe that. I internalized that, and I began that process of rebuilding my life. And what I meant by rebuilding my life, I was a person who went to prison at a seventh grade level of education, someone who was struggling with a lot of emotional pain, someone who did not speak for himself. I allowed my peers to speak for me, someone who was dealing with a lot of insecurities, a low sense of self-worth, self-esteem, definitely a person with no vision. And through all of that pain, I began to look at myself in a different light. I always tell people the man in the mirror is truly a concept for me, because I remember brushing my teeth inside of prison one morning, and I looked at myself for the first time in my own eyes. I looked at the eyes, as they say, the eyes are the mirrors to the soul. I remember looking at myself in that cell like, man, how in the world did you get here, and what could you do to fix that? And I remember in my eyes, I saw a 16-year-old broken boy that was hiding in a corner. That was me. I was a 16-year-old boy that was broken, who was dealing with a level of grief from losing his mother. I lost my mother at 16 years old. I remember coming home one day from school. Me and my mom's had a disagreement about me washing dishes. And I chose to argue with her about washing dishes, a typical 16-year-old response to your mother telling you your chores for that day. And I went to bed upset with my mom because she made me wash dishes. Then she told my pops about it. You know what I'm saying? So my pops came home and got on my butt. And I remember going to bed that night upset with my mom. I woke up that morning. My dad came in the house and said, came in the room and said, son, I need you to stay home with your moms. And I was like, nah, I'm going to school. Now, mind you, I was not the school guy. I would always look for an excuse to stay out of school. But this morning, I did not want to stay home. Fast forward 3 hours into school, one of my cousins came to pick me up, and he said that, hey, when we got in the car, he said, your mom's died. I walked out of the house that morning without saying goodbye to my moms. 3 hours later, we got the news that she died, right? So at 16, that pain sat with me, and it sat with me all the way while I was sitting in prison. A lot of my behavior choices was tied to that pain, to that brokenness. That 16-year-old kid that I saw in that, when I looked through my own eyes, I saw that 16-year-old kid. I said, the only way that I will be able to rise and take on this task of purpose and redemption, I first have to heal that 16-year-old kid. I had to go back to him and find out what was there. It had to help him make peace with the loss of his mother, process the grief. The grief led to a lot of bad decisions. And here I am in prison rebuilding my life. And through that, I use that story today to help empower others.
So Lester, let me ask you this. It's so much. I'm just even like, which part I want to start at. But I want to go back to the process that you had to go through to heal the 16-year-old.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that and help somebody that may be hearing you now or will hear this later and still need to heal and have not?
Yeah, I think what I had to do, first I had to acknowledge there was most people live in a stage of self-denial depending upon what that pain is. For me, because grief it was heavy on my heart. I would have dreams about my mom's. They say to go to the gravesite, and I never went to this gravesite. I went to the gravesite the day I got arrested. Right. So my mom passed away almost 3 years, and I never went to the gravesite until the day I got arrested to go for this crime that I was convicted of. So how I healed that is that I began journaling inside of a prison environment. I was excluded from majority of the programs in prison because I was a violent offender. I was not eligible for parole for 18, 19 years. So they was like, sit down and you do what you need to do. But I remember watching an Oprah Winfrey show one day, and she spoke about the power of gratitude journaling. And this is for the first time I thought about how I can process my pain is through writing. I started writing down things that I was grateful for, and that started causing me to do some deep reflection into how it all happened for me. I realized I was not immature, but insecure based upon my appearances. So I sought out materialism to cover that up. So by writing, I started figuring out what I needed to do to heal from. I needed to go back to my mom's. I needed to have a conversation with my mom's. I had to write my mom letters of apology and remind myself that my mom did not die upset with me. My mom's loved me. So that was a narrative that I created for myself. And that narrative, unfortunately, put me in some bad situations. So it's about me. I had to change that narrative. I had to reflect back to all of the great memories that me and my mom shared, and to know that she did not die upset with me. She died loving me and my 3 other sisters and my father. So that's when I started changing that mindset and reflecting about the great memories of my mother. So not only writing letters of asking for forgiveness, but writing down memories that I shared with my mother. And then I started rebuilding my self-esteem by being more confident who I was, because the choices that led to my incarceration was based surely upon insecurities. I wanted to make sure to impress my friends. And I realized my insecurity came because I wasn't confident about who I was. So I started reading books on helping me reshape that narrative in my head that I'm a person that God created, and I'm a handsome person. I'm a good looking person. I'm an intelligent person. I made a mistake, but this is who I am now. And by writing in those journals, it helped me to create these daily affirmations, letting me know that I am a strong person, I am a lovable person, I'm a good person. And those things started restructuring my mindset as I move forward in my journey in incarceration.
That is awesome. Powerful. And I'm emotional because I have a 9-year-old son.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's other 9-year-old boys. And there's husbands, there's fathers, just like yourself. What would you say to them? I mean, this is Black History Month. That's why we're here now, just acknowledging our struggles, acknowledging what we have overcome, acknowledging being recognized.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to a 9-year-old Black boy today, based upon your experiences?
I would just say that you got to learn to love yourself. You have to find something about you that you have to love. In spite of what your peers may tell you what they're doing, you have to find a sense of love in yourself. Like really believe that the words when your mother or your father tell you you are loved, you have that 9-year-old person have to really feel that and internalize that, because that has to be the anchor. Because as they get older and they go into the world, they're going to have a real sense of a real strong sense of identity. Majority of our young kids today in our communities, they lack identity. And you know what I mean? So a 9-year-old is really helping them shape an identity for themselves, that when the crowd is going right, they're not going to follow that crowd because they're very confident in who they are, and they're anchored into self-love. They're anchored into that, and they know who they are. For me at 9 years old, like most kids 9 years old, they don't have that. And parents don't really reinforce that sense of self-worth and self-confidence and make a person feel loved. So when I tell people today that we see, like in our society, in certain communities, we see the gang culture being elevated every day due to violent crimes. And you talk to these young people, I saw many of them inside of the prison, and they joined these things for a sense of identity. The colors gave them a sense of identity. The group gave them a sense of family. Right. So a majority of them, they gravitated towards that because they wanted a sense of identity. So as men, 9 years old, teenager, or adult man, we have to really be confident or reshape and get a better understanding of our own individual self-identity and what is that connected to, whether that's through studying Black history, studying and seeing that you come from greatness, or even if that's just studying your own personal family tree, or really standing in the mirror and looking at yourself and saying, who am I? And what it will be, what would I want to leave this world when I die? You know, like those are some serious questions that an adult male or a teenager need to really ask themselves, because a color criminal activity is only, for most cases, individuals crying out to be attached to something. Unfortunately, they make a bad decision, and they're like myself, is placed in the prison for life, 50, 60 years, because they was only searching for an identity. Wow. You know? And that identity had cost them their life, and unfortunately caused someone else to lose their life. So really focus on that 9-year-old, whomever, focus on your own individual identity. Be very confident in that.
Awesome. Same question, but now to the dads, to the husbands, to the fathers. Same question. Where, if they have not gotten that identity and now they're, let's just say in adulthood, various ages, what would you say to them?
For a dad, I would say that you have to like take the time out to go through this process of personal development. Most men, I would say the men that I've talked to over my years, we never heard this term personal development. We inherited a lot of bad behaviors and bad habits, that we take these bad habits into adult life. We don't really have a real good framework of what manhood looks like, or how a man should be, because we never saw it, or we saw it on a television show. So I would say really make the investment in your own personal growth. And again, knowing that you're on this earth for a purpose. You own this earth for a short period of time. And why waste that time in wayward behavior and living a life of bad habits? Take the time to invest in a book. Like one book a month will help reshape and structure you differently. While I was in prison, as I said, I was reading at a 7th grade level of education. One of the most impactful things for me was when I was able to sit down and discipline myself to begin reading books on positive thinking. Books about personal development, books about how you heal from brokenness, because I didn't have a therapist to speak to. So my books became my therapist, my journals became that. So I would tell the individual, make the investment in a book. There's only, I go to Barnes and Nobles or whatever these bookstores, and I get a book a month, or 2 or 3 books a month. And it's maybe $40 to $75, but it's worth the investment, because now you have, especially if you have children, you got to be thinking about what's your framework that you're going to be able to pass to your children.
Yes.
And if it consists of a lot of bad habits, financially, emotionally, you still have a lot of toxic stuff that you bring in from bad relationships, broken childhood experiences. You owe yourself and your family that time, that owe them that to heal, so that you can be able to add value to whomever you're in a relationship with, and for your children.
Yes, powerful. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to figure out. I have so many questions in my head. I'm trying to slow my own head down. Like,
excellent.
Wow.
Yeah.
some of your favorite books?
I mean, I like my first book in prison was the autobiography of Malcolm X. And the second one was the James Allen As a Man Thinketh. And that led me to reading the books by Napoleon Hill. And that led me to watching a lot of Oprah Winfrey shows. I became a big fan of Yolanda Van Zant, you know, Peace from Broken Pieces, you know, and stuff like that to make me really, and Yolanda Van Zant shared her story from a woman, as a woman. But for me as a man sitting in prison, I remember reading her book, Peace from Broken Pieces, as she was talking about her experience with molestation and brokenness and stuff like that, and how she went about healing. I found the strategy to my own personal healing by reading the story of Yolanda Van Zant, or reading the story of Tyler Perry when he talks about him being molested at a young age and how he was able to heal. So through the grace of God, the books allowed me to begin this healing that I wasn't comfortable talking to a therapist in prison with, but reading their stories helped me to be able to identify what my areas of brokenness and how I can begin the healing and create this process of healing for myself. So there was, I love reading. On my desk right now, I got over 10 books on my desk right now that, again, I know the value of educating myself so that I can continue to build myself into becoming a better person for my family, for my wife, my daughter, and then for my community, for those who I seek to continue to inspire and help elevate.
And I always tell people, it's really not a cliche. When you are a leader, leaders are truly readers.
Oh,
you got to go get your library card, people. I'm serious.
Yeah, I was just on a call with someone earlier today about that. I said, when we're talking about leadership philosophy, you know, a person, when you're in leadership capacity, you have to really define what your leadership is, your philosophy is. My mentor in prison, a guy named Rick Jordan, he told me that in order for me to be an effective leader in the prison and even after prison, he said, I have to define my values. What's my moral compass, and be very clear, not just saying God, family, but he said exclude those three because those are the common three that most people would say, but really get clear on what values are. You know,
I call them layers myself. I say you have to pull back the onion, and it's not just a surfacey answer.
Exactly.
We need some details.
Exactly. And then create the behavior, and what are the behaviors that you have to create and the habits to uphold these particular values that you have. And that helps you create that framework so that you move through in a different way to help you, whatever it is that you're striving to do. So yeah, I believe that value system is very important. And that's something that when I talk to the men in prison or when they're transitioning out of prison, even for our youth, let's really define it. All of us have our unique leadership abilities and skills. Right. But let's clarify that a little more. You can be a leader of your family. You could be a leader of your friends in a good way, but really get clear and drill down on what's that value that you stand upon that is going to be the lens in how you judge and move. For me, I didn't have a value system in the way that I have today. That's why I made a lot of bad choices. I valued all of the wrong things, and I saw it in those particular lens.
And it's awesome because it's the same thing in business. It's just like, you know, you have your mission statement, your vision statement, but even as a business teacher, you still have to have your value statements. And whatever you do in business still stems from who you are personally, what you believe in personally. So love that. Go ahead. You want to say something?
I was just say, like, I was going back again to like in business, because I studied my mentor, he taught about entrepreneurship, because I believe one of the biggest challenge that many men and women face when they're returning home from prison is employment. So I started an entrepreneurship class inside of prison. And in this entrepreneurship class, it was focused on business, but it also was focused on personal development. So I would always flip, like the SWOT analysis, you know, we SWOT for the strength of your business, the weakness and the threat, obstacle or the threat, right?
Right.
I would always use that and say, push this back on you. What is your strength as a man, or you know, as an individual? What is what's your weakness? What will be your obstacle that you will face that you can somewhat foresee once you walk out of prison? What are your emotional triggers that cause you to revert back to a certain behavior? So that it makes you really look at yourself in a different way, to say, I have these emotional triggers, and these emotional triggers, if I don't really pay attention to them, there's certain things, certain environments, certain people I could be around could be that trigger that causes me to revert back to a certain behavior.
Absolutely. Good stuff. So I'm gonna take a pause for the calls right here. This is like my little commercial break.
Fine.
Do your shout outs. Who you need to shout out right about now?
I want to shout out my wife, Felicia.
Hey, wifey.
Yeah, she's a true champion behind the scenes. This woman loved me in prison when there was a dark cloud and I was hidden from the world. She saw something in me by the grace of God, and she stood with me, and we created a strategy for me to be where I'm at today. So I give her all of the praises and the thanks for just being the woman that she was.
Awesome. Yes, yes, I love it. Anybody else?
Of course, my sisters, my daughter, I thank all of them, and my daughter, who's my legacy, that the reason why I wake up now even stronger and focus on the work that I'm doing, because she's 5 and looking forward to leaving her not only a legacy of memories, but just leaving something that she can continue to build from, to be that pass that baton to the next generation. I just lost my father in August, and my father passed the baton to me, and I'm his namesake. So it's like now I have a daughter, I have a family that I have to pass this baton to in a more healthier way to continue to elevate my name, my family's name.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I'm trying to go over here, but I keep wanting to come over here because I keep seeing this recurring thing, even with legacy. And I want to get a little bit more into that because we say these words, but what does it really mean when we're talking about leaving a legacy? Because that's actually one of my value statements. My very first value statement for my business and everything I do is I stand behind my name. Yeah. But besides standing behind my name, my maiden name is Hawkins. My married name is Bergens. So for me, it's both. It's breaking the curse off of both. It's going forward in both. It's leaving a legacy for both, leaving a legacy for my son. But I want to go more into it. What does that mean when we say I'm leaving a legacy? And just like you said, let's get some details to help the people to really understand.
Well, like for my dad, before my dad passed away, I'm so thankful that me and my dad have always had a great relationship. Unfortunately, I truly believe that our relationship got stronger when I was in prison and I became an adult, and I didn't, unfortunately, when I was young, I didn't see the value of my name. I'm named after my father, and didn't realize that the actions in which I did, I add so much shame and embarrassment to my father. Like here it is, I was convicted of murder at 19 years old. My father's a deacon in the church. I'm a member of a church. And my dad would have to go to church every week or go to work every week and know that his son was convicted of murder. I dishonored my dad, but at 19, I didn't understand that. I really didn't. So the more and more me and my father build a stronger relationship, I understood that I take on my father's name, and whatever his dreams were that he was not able to live out on this earth, I should strive to do. My dad was always talking about starting a family business. He always wanted to make sure that his family had a better understanding financially. Even with the limited education he had, those are the things that he spoke about: family values, no matter what, that we stick together, share that. And that's what I do now. I mean, my sisters, we're talking about business. Every week we're doing something together, continue to show that strength in the bond. But I want to also just leave something back to say that that's my brother. I want to, like my daughter, I want my daughter to not just say my daddy lived this earth for whatever amount of years, but to say that my dad wrote books. My dad used pain to turn into a purpose. My dad impacted lives. No matter, in spite of his challenges, my dad impacted lives. And everywhere I go, I want her to be able to go with me so she can see it and feel it and continue to carry on that by making an impact in any means.
Awesome. I love it. So I would like for you, before I transition to this next part, give the people a little bit of strategies that they can use, some tools for the toolbox, coach. So when they're done, they know what it means to leave a legacy. Give them a couple of tools for the toolbox.
For as the individuals who are listening, or just anyone?
However the Lord leads.
Okay, cool. One of the most important tools for me that what I've used is really defining what you were placed on this earth for. Like really tap into that purpose. Find out what your purpose is, and that purpose may your experience that you have went through in life. You find some lessons in there which you can help elevate someone within your family or within your community. Like really know and understand that you do not go through a trial or a tribulation in life without a purpose. There's a purpose there. And that purpose may not that you reach the masses of people. It may be just really connecting with one person. So I would say that anytime you're looking to make an impact, don't try to follow and mimic other people. Go back to your own story. Go back to your story, your life experiences, and find some lessons there in which you can begin to teach others, you know, and from there, you continue to build upon that lesson. But it's all, we have, each and every one of us have a unique DNA, right? And my fingerprint doesn't match my three sisters. My fingerprint doesn't match my daughter's fingerprint. And I would always say that tap into your unique experience and use your unique experience, your unique existence on this earth for a purpose. Use your vessel to continue to make an impact, and whatever that may be.
Awesome. Okay. Now I want to fast forward.
Okay.
You've received your pardon.
Yeah, thankful.
Tell us about that.
You know, when I was paroled out of South Carolina prison after serving 22 years and 5 months. And because of my sentence, I had a life sentence. That meant like once I was paroled, I would remain on parole for life, meaning that I would have to always report to an agent. I could not travel outside of the state unless I get permission. Certain places I couldn't go. I was not able to get a passport. All of my rights were restricted. I was not able to vote. So for the entire, if I didn't ever petition the parole board for a pardon, I would have never gotten this right. And as a community organizer and advocate, I've been advocating for those who with felony convictions to get their rights reinstated, to vote, to get involved in the local politics of your community, because you have a voice, your experience, you have a voice. Like I advocated here in South Carolina for removing the question, have you been convicted of a felony, off of application with the cities and the counties.
Go ahead, Lester.
Yeah, that was a challenge because
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a challenge for his employment. So we was able to get 5 cities in South Carolina to pass a ban-the-box ordinance. So I was always telling guys like, hey, vote for me, like get involved in the politics. So eventually, after I completed my 5 years, I was able to put in for a pardon, and by the grace of God, I was granted a pardon, you know, to now vote. So I voted for the first time in the general election, national elections, for the first time in my life, and looking forward to continue that in a local level, but also be an example to those who are coming home from prison, that your felony conviction does not define you. You use your felony conviction as a tool to elevate yourself and others by definitely getting involved with the local politics, and stop voting because you have a say-so. You have a voice in this election, whether local or nationally.
Okay. I was almost about to run because I was like a preach right there, you know, on that part. And I'm like, oh yeah, I ain't in church. So congratulations.
Thank you.
That is so powerful. Okay. I'm trying to figure out still which way I want to go. I'm getting to the books. I want to really use this time to pour into the people who are just meeting a Lester Young for the first time with your story, your power, your empowerment for the community. I've asked this of everybody this week, and I'm asking everyone, it's Black History Month. What does that mean to you now?
Black history, going back again to identity. You know, unfortunately, when I was young, I had no understanding of the contribution that our ancestors contributed to this country, the world, and the sacrifices they made. So just as we mentioned about voting, unfortunately, my education, my sense of awareness of the sacrifices that were made in the 60s for the voting rights and all of this stuff, I was not aware of it. You know, it was small snippets that I can recall in school. But when I got an opportunity going back again to awakening myself out of that dormant state of ignorance and started reading books, I saw the sacrifices that our ancestors made. And that gave me a sense of purpose even more, and a motivation to let me know that I stand on the shoulders of great people. I stand on the shoulders of people who are resilient, that in spite of the challenges and the knockdowns and the no's, they still push through. You know, so for me, like even going back again to this voting, I felt honored, and I felt standing with the ancestors that I voted for the blood and sacrifices that they made for me to vote in this country, whether Republican or Democrat, but they voted for just the right to vote. So when I look at history today, history is, as I said, it doesn't define us as Black people saying that we'll never be able to do things. It should be a tool to help us elevate to the next level in everything that we do as Black people, because we know where we come from. We come from greatness in spite of how much people try to knock us down, strip us of our identity, tell us that we're not nothing, created laws and policies that keep you confined to one thing. We never gave up. We never gave up. Our families, our people never gave up. You and I are here today because our ancestors that we never met chose to persevere through in the bowels of ships to get to the shores of America. And in spite of how cruel and dehumanizing slavery was, someone in your family tree fought and stood strong to put us in a position where they continue to pass on these particular genes and all of these things that I'm here, you're here. So we represent greatness that most races cannot identify, that, man, that they didn't go through what we went through.
Yeah, yeah.
So that to me is inspiring. Black history, you know, is for me is every day of the week, every month, every year, because of so much sacrifices been made, and we're still not fully understanding the sacrifices that those who came before us made in this country to put us in a position where we're sitting in a nice home, we're voting, we're electing presidents and mayors and governors, and come on.
Yeah, and that's powerful. I think about that a lot myself, because that's why I say I look at my maiden name as well as my married name, because I am from the South. I was born in Louisiana. My parents picked cotton. My grandparents could not read. My great-grandparents were of mixed breed, which came down. So it's a lot. And so when I always think about that in the name and in the identity of who I am. So powerful. Now, I want to jump on to the books. Tell us about the books. And let me just say this before you get to your books. For those of you who are chiming in and sharing, and I want to say hello, hey, to my cousin Pamela Berkins. How you doing? And I see you, Doree, and Jennifer, and Isaac Williams. He said, shout out to you.
Yeah. These ones incarcerated together.
Yeah. So, and for those who will see this later, Lester Young is someone you should know. I also want to point this out so I don't forget, because we already know, Lester, there is so much that God has in store for you to help some people. I'm just glad to be on the train to catch you right now where I can get you. I want to send this out because I know somebody's going to see this. So Aaron Hogan is a classmate and a friend of mine who goes out to the prisons here and speaks to the youth. I'm saying this so I don't forget. You and Aaron definitely got to hook up, because Aaron needs what you have to go speak to these people in prison here in our area, in Indiana. Yesterday we just did the Urban League of Northwest Indiana, which is a civil rights organization. So Vanessa Allen, Lester Young is somebody you need to connect with, because they have a program. But and that was my whole point yesterday. We hear all these names, but what do they do? So the Urban League actually has a program for ex-offenders to help them. But guess what? They still need a path to redemption. They still need to hear the story of a Lester Young and see. And I already know that God is so good that I just need to connect some people, and He's gonna take care of the rest. So I'm gonna make sure you hook up with Vanessa Allen, president of the Urban League, because we got to get this out. We got to help some people. We got to save some young men. We got to save some men when they 5, when they 2, and when they 3, and catch on to this identity and let you be the curse breaker and help some people break some curses.
Wow.
But I'm gonna hold on to that too. Tell me about the books. Tell me about, because I done got so hyped. I'm like, you got your 5 steps. You got, just do it. Just go ahead. Just go.
This is my first book, right? Called The 5 Stages of Incarceration. And this book.
Wait, put it back up. You're going too fast. Put the book up. Tell them again.
This is my first book called The 5 Stages of Incarceration. And when I mentioned to you earlier about journaling, I started journaling and identified there were 5 levels of incarceration that wasn't taught, but the 5 stages were helping an individual identify what are the core issues of self-denial. What are they in denial about? Whether that's an addiction, but go a little deeper. What that addiction? How did you get to that addiction? What is grief? What is abandonment? What are you struggling? Are you struggling from a sense of lack of identity because you was abandoned by your father and you have not made amends with your father? And which leads to the second stage, which is called anger. We see a lot of people display anger and we'd be like, we have a tendency in our minds, we only see the tip of the iceberg, but don't see the layers, right? So I challenge individuals in the book to really drill down on what are the core issues that leads to your anger. And the third was called the victimization mindset, where because sometimes of an abandonment issues, you always see yourself as the victim, but that's not a healthy way to bring about true growth and transformation, especially in a prison environment. So I teach about ownership, like take ownership for the actions of the decisions that you made. True indeed, you did not have the best childhood upbringing, you had the best family, but at the end of the day, you still made a choice. You still made a choice, and you have to take ownership for that choice that you made. And in the fourth stage was forgiveness. I realized that for me, it was hard for me to forgive myself. It's like easy to say, "Oh God, please forgive me for my sins I've wronged," and we move forward. But very rarely do we take the time to write to ourselves about forgiveness. So for a period of time in my incarceration, I would write myself a personal letter every day, apologizing for something. Because going back again, like you said, peeling back those layers, in order for me to be healthy and to show up, I have to be confident in who I am. And sometimes I got to forgive myself. And then I would write letters to those who I had harmed. I have to begin that process of atoning, was telling those who I hurt that please forgive me. And they never received a letter. But I would write their names in a journal, and I would write a quick letter to them, not a quick letter, but a thoughtful letter, apologizing. And then being that I had someone that had died as a result of my wayward, bad behavior, I had to write their families every day. I prayed so hard in prison for that family to forgive me that I released it in the universe to God. My dad always told me, says, "Why stress if you pray?" He said, if you take it to the altar, trust that God would bring about a resolution, or God will bring about a change in the situation. I prayed so hard for my victim to forgive me and to understand that that was never my intentions to take the life of their loved one. And I left that there, and I prayed, and I would write letters that the day I walked out of prison, I realized that God had already worked that situation out for me. The reason why I was able to make parole, the reason why I got a pardon so early on in my release, is because God placed forgiveness in the hearts of my victims. Because I did the work. Intentionally seeking that forgiveness. And the fifth stage of that was transformation. That in order for true transformation to come about, you have to deal with your areas of denial. You have to deal with the core things of your anger. The third, you got to get away from that victimization mindset, and you have to begin the process of forgiveness. Like, start with God. Many people go to religion and beg God forgiveness, but their heart they still have an unforgiving heart. I had to forgive my homeboys who betrayed me, that I said I'll never forgive them. But I realized,
come on.
I remember this. I was in it was maybe 7 years into my incarceration, and I was praying and I was fasting. I was fasting every day and praying, and I didn't feel like I was elevating spiritually. Felt like I still had some weight on me, right? And I remember, God definitely has the power of showing you things. And I remember sitting in that cell one day, and a book was in there about forgiveness. And in this book, it was talking about forgiving others who harm you. And for a long time, I was praying to God with a heart of unforgiveness. I said, I'll never forget my homeboy for testifying and telling what he told on me. And he's free, and I'm still in prison with a life sentence. I said, I'll never forgive him for that. And to be honest, I said, if I see him, me and him going to fight on the spot. And in that process, that spiritual growth, God said, how could you ask for forgiveness and want transformation if you're not willing to forgive all people? You can't be selective in who you forgive. You have to forgive everyone. And that's when I remember writing a letter to my friend, and I said, man, I apologize. I said, I forgive you. Within 3 days, I got that letter back, and he's telling me like, man, I appreciate you forgiving me. He said, man, I've never forgiven myself for what I did to you.
Come on, preacher.
Yeah, he said, I never forgave myself. And to this day, unfortunately, he still carries that burden, because he felt like it was a lot of untruth that was said during my trial, that he knew that. He knows that. I know that, right? But he did it in a way to protect himself and not telling the truth. And because of that, that guilt continuously affected his life. And because I forgave him, but he never forgave himself. And I saw him a couple years after I got out of prison, and I still see that weight that he carries to this day. So I always tell people, like, you got to go through that process. If you choose, I wanted, as a spiritual person, a man who believed in God, I had to forgive this individual. And it was hard. And then he thought that I didn't forgive him, but I was like, bro, I really forgave you. And I saw him when I got out of prison, and he was like, he was a little reluctant to embrace me because he knew the type of man, the mindset that I had prior to prison, that I hugged him. I was like, bro, I forgive you. I really do forgive you. You know, and that just shows you the transformation. So as we pray, we got to think about peeling back. I like that peel back those onions and begin to work on yourself. Like, forgive people who have harmed you. But most importantly, think about the people you harm. If you never meet them again, I would write.
Come on, Lester. Now you helping some people. Now I don't know if you realizing this.
I would write letters to, again, going back to the power of journaling, I would literally write a letter to people, and I would just put person A, I remember you had this color shoes on. Or, you know, I sold drugs, unfortunately. I would think about the people, the men and the women I sold drugs to. And I remember certain images of them. I would write describing their image and apologize to them, because I know I'll never meet these people ever again. But I needed to make that process of forgiveness. And forgiveness is a whole lot of work, and it takes years to begin that cleansing process. I think it's a saying that having an unforgiving heart is like you drinking the poison, expecting the person that you have been forgiven to die, but you actually drinking that poison. So to free yourself, you have to move with a heart of forgiveness.
Well, we thank God for that book of forgiveness that eventually is going to be coming out as well. No, I'm serious. I know you realize this, but I still don't think you realize the power that is on the inside of you to change and transform, to help some people to not ever do some things again. I am so honored to meet you, but you got to tell us about the second book too. That was the first. Tell us about the second book.
This is the second book I just completed on my dad's birthday. This is my dad's favorite color. And I actually said I wanted to do something in honor of my dad, going back into his legacy. To people to never forget who my dad is. So in this book, I put a picture of my dad and my sisters in this book. This is my dad in here, you know, in honor of my dad. He saw me write my first book, but he never saw me finish my second book. So it's a way of honoring him. But in this is called the 5 Stages of Growth. And I speak about, in order for growth to really come about for me and for others that I come in contact with, is that you have to heal. Like the first stage of growth is that you can't expect for growth if you don't heal.
You have to heal.
Pain. And the second one was through that healing for me, I discovered my voice. Like the voice that you hear today was never a voice that I thought about 20 years ago. But because I went through this process of healing, I found the voice that God created me to use. Right? A lot of people still speaking like parrots. They're speaking from the voice of someone else. They're not speaking from their authentic voice because they're still dealing with a lot of trauma and pain. But I found my voice in my pain. I found my voice in my purpose and discovering who I was through my healing. And that leads to the third stage of growth was now discovering purpose. As I mentioned, every human being that God created on this earth has a purpose. As you have heard many speakers mention, that the graveyards are filled with a lot of the solutions to our problems, but most people die not discovering that purpose. So I believe that you have to discover that purpose before you live on this earth, because as I said, the angels would stand and they would question you like, how did you die with all of the answers to the world problems? You died because you got wrapped up in the pain and not understanding that the pain brings about purpose. And from that vision, I believe every man and woman should have a vision for their life and for their family. Where you're going, it just says that people without a vision is doomed to perish. You have to have a vision. But in these 3 visions, and I say this, in the vision, I learned there's three levels of vision. A lot of people say they have a vision, but they're not willing to go in the valley for the vision, right? When we study the people of God, God gave them a vision, but they went in the valley, right? You look at the story of Joseph. God gave him a vision, but Joseph never thought that someone would throw him in the bottom of the well and he would be in prison for whatever period of time, right? So with that vision, with vision, there's come a valley and then a victory. A lot of people want victory. They want a vision with no valley. They would
preach, preacher, preach.
They would never be.
Come on.
vision, there will never be a true vision without going through the valley. And for me, my vision, God gave me this vision while I was in prison.
Yes.
But I had to go through the valley. When I walked out of prison, I still go through a valley, but I understand that with vision, there has to be a valley. And in that valley, there comes a victory if you continuously persevere through that. And then the last stage of that is mindset. Is that in spite of this healing, finding your voice, discovering purpose, and having a vision, it's all about keeping that a mindset that continuously walk this out. Because you see some people show up today, 2 days later, they don't show up anymore because their mindset is not right. You got to always continuously working on your mindset through, again, making an investment, going to a conference, finding a coach, buying the books that is going to continuously keeping your mindset there, because there's so many external things and even internal things that is going to affect you on your thought process and how you move. So you got to always stay guard on that. So. So we good?
Hey, I'm like, you finished? We can keep going. Look, this is my show, my time.
That's it. I mean, those are the 2 books, and it's written just to help people find some sense of purpose in their life. Because, like I said, we all know we're going to die.
Can you put them back up for me, and then let the people know how they can order the books and get your books?
Go to Path2Redemption.org, and you can purchase these books. We sell them in a bundle for those who have never read my story about me finding these stages of incarceration in prison. These 2 books right here, you can just go on my website and get them as a bundle. And with that, and also with this, like you were talking about the individual in the juvenile facilities, we also use these for people who want to make donations. You can go to my website, because we send books into the prisons, because going back again, I know the value of wanting a book that can help you, but you don't have the money to, or your family don't have the money. So we donate hundreds of books so far into the different prisons across this country, where we send books in. I have this is a stack of reviews, right? I sent this into prison in Illinois, right? This guy, they created a certificate, they created a program with my book, right? They created a program. And this guy actually, now, these are all letters of reviews from the men inside of the prisons that have gotten my book and writing the value in which they take out of the book. So, that's what we do. I just believe empowering our community through reading books and making it simple that they can identify with.
That's exactly why you need to connect with Vanessa Allen at the Urban League, so that she can help connect to the vision and make it even bigger. And all of that good stuff. I'm gonna make sure you get her email, the phone number. It's just the Urban League, but just call and say, Francis, we good like this. Francine told me to call. You good?
I will.
Even though we're okay on time, I do want to wrap it up a little bit. Any last words? Anything that you want to share with the people?
Yes, I just would say that, unfortunately, we live in a society today where almost 1 in 3 individuals in our communities have a loved one that has been impacted by the criminal justice system. Whether they have a felony conviction, or whether they're in prison, or they're in the Department of Juvenile Justice. We know family members that are inside of these systems. We have to start seeing these individuals as individuals who are really haven't gotten it all together yet. And we have to make an investment in our community. If we see that these county jails, these Department of Juvenile Justices, and these prison systems are in our communities, we cannot continue to believing that these people will never return back to our community. 85% of the individuals that are currently incarcerated will one day be free, whether their uncle or father or whomever it may be. Let's take some of our resources in our community and take these resources to begin creating mentoring programs for those who are outside our young people today. I said, let's create no entry programs. Let's focus on helping our young people get a sense of a self-identity before they find an identity in an environment that will lead them to prison or early grave. Right? Let's start teaching entrepreneurship in our communities. When we see our young people having these aspirations of making money, let's show them how to make money correctly. Because they have entrepreneurship skills, but they're given the wrong products, and the wrong products are leading to devastation in our communities, but unfortunately leading to incarceration. Let's begin educating our young people about entrepreneurship, financial literacy, turning their ideas into helping them monetize their ideas so that they can now become successful, not as a drug dealer or an athlete, but someone who's an entrepreneur. For those who are currently in prison, the prison outreach programs, let's focus not on just spreading the gospel, but let's focus on helping people heal. Let's go in to help challenge these men and women that we're spreading and teaching about God. Let's help them heal so that they can truly walk in their spirit of their spirituality. You cannot walk in spirituality when you're still broken. It only becomes a cover or a coat that you cover your pain from. But unfortunately, just like they said, a cheap suit, when water touches it, shrinks back up. And this is what you find. These individuals need true healing, and we have to create these programs to help people heal so that they can continue to move forward and be better husbands, better mothers in these communities, because 2.3 million people in our country is incarcerated. You know, over 70 million people in our community have a felony conviction. These felony convictions are considered a life sentence for a lot of people. What I mean by that, they prevent these people from employment, they prevent them from housing, prevent them from healthcare, SNAP benefits, education. There's so many things attached to it. So we as a village have to create better systems in place to help protect our community. And I thank you, sis.
You're welcome. So tell me we don't need a less than young people. So I tell y'all what, you better call them now while you can get them.
God willing.
And let me ask you this. I would love for you to pray, speak a word, however you want to do it, just over the people before we even end. Are you comfortable with that?
I would just say my word would be is I would just pray that, you know,
yeah, I'm pulling and stretching. I know.
I would just say, you know, let's continue to trust in God. Like I said, whatever your vision is for your life, pray that God give you the strength to continue to walk that vision out. But
I hear that. I receive that.
But even in your valley, know that God has a purpose. Trust the process.
Yes.
Like you may feel broken. When I was in prison for those 22 years, I would never, you know, I knew, but I didn't know. Like God is still blowing my mind because there's so many great things. Just trust God, trust the process, and watch how God show up in your life and open doors for you that you never thought would be possible and put you in places you never thought you would be. God opening doors. He is definitely
come on.
Of many keys to many doors.
Yeah, I'm a living witness to that myself today. So I received that. Just God bless you. It's so funny. I do so many Zoom meetings. I'm like, okay, everybody, give me a reaction. But I'm like, oh yeah, I'm on Facebook. So y'all give me some hearts, give us some likes. Just repeat again how people can get you.
Go to my organization. You see it like on my shirt, Path2Redemption.org. You know, you can go to there and you could see like my YouTube channel, my social media channel, my podcast channel. You can also read a little bit about some of the work that I do in our community today. You get an opportunity, you can purchase the books, or you can even make a donation and say, hey, I would like to send this amount of books to this particular prison. I will reach out to whomever, the warden or the chaplain, and say, I'm going to be sending a donation of books into the prison. Like I said, the books that I sent these guys, the prison chaplain opened the books. They made sure the books are good. These men created programs from my book. You know, one of their mothers sent the book in to one person. He read it. He was like, wow, this is a book that we need in this environment. It's nothing like it. He comes from a lived experience. They created an entire program with my book. So I'm just saying that you can go to that website and purchase the books for yourself, but also make a donation, sow a seed into someone in these environments that eventually will be home, that we'll have more Lesters being able to use their lived experience to empower our community. And I appreciate it.
Awesome. My God, powerful. Thank you so much. Whew, I need to take a whole breath myself. I do. I need to take a breath. Thank you so much. Just wow. Thank you. I'm trying to get my little buttons together too. I want to just say thank you to everybody. This is going to be recorded. We are going to download it. We're going to put it on YouTube. So that way we will have it. I need you guys to share it, because even if you don't see it today, we know that some people are going to see this video at whatever time they see it. So Lester Young, thank you. Tell your wife I said thank you. We want to send a shout out to Toyinda. Toyinda, thank you, my sister, that I had a chance to meet Lester. And we're going to end and close. So my brother, I thank you and many blessings to you. God bless, okay? And I'm going to end it.